Expressway. Mr. Biadokun also directed the Deputy IG Operations at the to ensure the strict monitoring of the security personnel assigned to the route, adding that the presence of the equipped operatives will act as a deterrent to criminal activities in the wake of all these issues. He hopes that this will arrest the situation and bring peace back. Well, in all of this, some Nigerians have renewed a call for state police and other measures that could give permanent solution to these issues. Tonight, I'm being joined by a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, who joins us live from Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Falana, for joining us tonight on the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Yeah. The situation or the event on the eve of Christmas in Plateau State leaves a very sour taste in the mouth. And a lot of people will be wondering, where are we headed? How do we stop? How do we stop this kind of situation from happening again? And there are those who are calling again for state policing. Do you think that is a way to go? Are we supposed to expect a drastic decision from the federal government, from the president in this respect?
Well, as far as the Constitution is concerned, particularly Section 214, there shall be only one police force in Nigeria, the Nigerian police force. It is not a federal government police force, contrary to the general belief of Nigerians and governors. We do not have a federal government police force. We have a federation police force, which shall be jointly managed by the federal government and the state governments. Then Section 215 provides that the president will be in charge of law and order at the federal level, while the governors in the states will be in charge of law and order in the respective states. But what has happened over the years, since 1999, is that state governments or state governors have abdicated their constitutional responsibility and handed over police powers in Nigeria to the president and the Inspector General of Police with profound respect. As far as the Constitution is concerned, if you go to the third schedule, to the Constitution, there is a body known as the Nigerian Police Council, whose functions include the organization and administration of the Nigerian Police Force and the general supervision of the Nigerian Police Force. That body shall also advise the president with respect to the appointment of the Inspector General of Police. Who are the members of this body? The president only as the chairman of the body. The 36 state governors, the Inspector General of Police, and the chairman police council. In other words, in the 39-member council, Nigerian Police Council, governors number 36. So out of the 39 members, governors constitute 36 of the members. So in any meeting of that body, the governors can always insist on what should happen in their state. But what has happened is that this body does not meet unlike other federal executive bodies in Nigeria, created by Section 153 of the Constitution. We have even gone to court to compel regular meetings of this body so that policing can be taken very seriously, so that the security of Nigerians can be taken seriously. You expect, the Constitution expects the Nigerian Police Council to meet regularly, like other federal bodies. Even the Nigerian Police, the Police Establishment Act of 2020 now provide that that body shall meet not less than twice a year. Since that law was made in 2020, the body has met only once to ratify the acting capacity, the acting appointment of the Inspector General of Police. So the point I'm making therefore is that we must go back to the Constitution. Some of the suggestions that have been made since the unfortunate incident in Plateau State are, for me, knee-jerk reactions. They have nothing to do with the Constitution. Even the idea of state police is, for me, diversionary. Why did the Constitution prohibit state police or police forces in Nigeria? It was because of the experience of our people under the colonial regime and in the First Republic, whereby political leaders in the regions subjected their opponents to horrendous violations of their human rights. And that was why it is said, no, we shouldn't go back to that dangerous era. Today, in spite of the challenges, today, not many Nigerians will expect some of this will allow state police because of the fear that they may be turned into instruments of oppression by governors who have used even the federal police to intimidate, demolish the building or the houses of their opponents, or even engage in extrajudicial killing in the states. Or those who use the police or thugs to rig elections cannot be asked to manage state police. Therefore, we should stop the diversionary suggestion that the answer to the crisis in the country is state police. What is the solution provided by the Constitution? It is to have a police force that is adequately equipped. As a matter of fact, in 2019, we had the Police Equipment Fund Act to make provision for the training, adequate training of police personnel in Nigeria, and provide state-of-the-art security. That is the language of the law. But what has happened? And to fund that body, to fund the police, 0.5% of the money in the federation account will be deployed, and other funds. So what has happened since 2019?
Falana.
The money meant to equip the police, the money meant to train the police is diverted. And those are the issues we should address. How do you adequately fund the police so that they will have operational vehicles, they will have adequate training, they will have security guidance to address security challenges?
So, Mr. Falana, if I may jump in quickly. So you look at it, and interestingly, you are a member at the Confab 2014, and there were far-reaching recommendations made. And there are those who say those recommendations will help our nation move forward. In fact, the likes of Afenifere are now asking that the Tinubu-led federal government should now start dusting up the Confab report to implement it their own way of restructuring Nigeria. In that document, do you think there are propositions on how to resolve the insecurity situation in the country?
The most important recommendation of that body in 2014 was and is the provision for the justiciability of the socio-economic crisis of our people, the fundamental objectives. And I'm talking of the right to employment, the right to health, the right to education, and so on and so forth. Social services. That body provides that every Nigerian should be empowered to go to court if these rights are violated by the government. Because you can't talk of physical security without talking of social security. There are countries now, particularly Scandinavian countries, that are closing down their prisons because young people are no longer going to prison. The state has taken care of their welfare. In the case of Nigeria, it's provided there in Section 14 of the Constitution that the security and welfare of Nigerians shall be the primary purpose of government. The point I'm making, therefore, is that the government of the day must quickly address the challenges of security, the challenges of welfare of our people. And I'm suggesting that as a matter of urgency, the president should call a meeting of the Nigerian Police Council so that the question of policy in the entire country can be addressed as provided by the Constitution.
So, Mr. Falana, if you go to Section 216 that you referenced, Mr. Falana, quickly, you mentioned that the 0.5% that is supposed to be that's meant for the equipping of the Nigerian police on one hand, which we don't know whether or not we don't know when last that has been obeyed. The Section 216, which I'd like to show a lot of Nigerians, which you referenced, the fundamental role of the Nigeria Police Council. If this has been in breach and it has not been followed, because if there are laws and it's not being followed, the law is useless, isn't it?
I agree with you. What I'm saying is that we have the Nigerian police force that is meant to address the issue of law and order in all parts of Nigeria. In fact, Section 216 of the Constitution provides that the president cannot remove or appoint an Inspector General of Police without consulting the Nigerian Police Council. It is that body that shall be in charge of the Nigerian police force. But what has happened? What has happened is that it is the federal government alone that is managing, organizing, and supervising the Nigerian police force. I am challenging our governors who are throwing up their hands in helplessness to take advantage of the provisions of the Constitution, to insist on the regular meetings of the Nigerian Police Council, so that security challenge in every part of the country can be discussed by that body. The number of police personnel to serve in every state should be decided by that body. But right now, there was even a time, the Office of the Inspector General of Police and the Nigerian Police Council were fighting over how many police personnel should be employed. No, that is the duty of the Nigerian Police Council to decide how many police personnel will be needed in every state in Nigeria and the funding to be addressed. So I'm saying, for now, please let us go back to the drawing table and take security of Nigeria very seriously, as provided by the Constitution. Then the Police Equipment Fund Act, our governors again must show interest, because 0.5% of money from the Federation account and other sources are put together to fund the police, to train the police, to equip the police. Now, this money will provide respect. It's not being deployed to train police personnel in Nigeria. It's not being deployed to equip the police or to rebuild their barracks. So from today, let all agencies of the government, let all public officers empowered by the Constitution to exercise police powers in our country take their job very seriously, so that the question of insecurity in our country will be a thing of the past.
Yeah, Mr. Fano, there are those who argue that, look, intelligence has been the vulnerable leg in policing in Nigeria, and those who will say, if you compare the United States and in some other climes where you have the sheriffs and the local police that are very close, under 5 minutes the deployment is there. You go into some police stations in some local government, in some communities, in some deep rural part of this country, you find just maybe 1 or 2 police officers, and in fact the ratio of police officers to the citizen is very abysmal. But if we go on and on about this policing issue, one will wonder where we are headed. But you've laid some fundamental issues. But I would like you to comment on the recent decision of the federal government. And I know, and I've reminded Nigerians, that the Bola Tinubu government did not do it first. That is a slashing of the delegation of the federal government in travels. That the cost, the federal government under Bola Tinubu says 60% in the cost. The Buhari government in 2019, August, also did the same thing. But from your own point of view, is this cosmetic or is it realistic?
Well, it is realistic. And if possible, the government can still go further and reduce the number from 60 to 40% or thereabout, having regards to the state of the economy. But there are areas to address. There are areas to address where we are wasting a lot of resources. I once traveled and I was in one of the embassies, and I was flabbergasted to learn that Nigeria has been paying rents in an African country, paying rents for our embassy since 1962. So that shouldn't be so. So the government will have to look holistically at the areas of waste. Yes, that's a good initiative on the part of the president. Our governors must also reduce their entourage locally and internationally, so that we can let the world know and let Nigerians know that the question of sacrifice will have to start from the top. For years, we have asked the poor to tighten their bets. It is the government now that should tighten their bet. The budget must be reviewed to reflect the state of the economy. And for me, but we are starting now. We are starting now to begin to cut down excesses of government. And for me, I think it's a good development.
No, but if you look at it,
but we need to go far.
Yeah.
We need to go much more.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of these issues, and I've been one of the advocates of those who say we need to look inwards. In fact, there was, I had a conversation with the former governor of Kano State about the manner in which governors and some other officials of government comport themselves, or the way they live, the kind of luxury that you find government officials. And in fact, sometimes they throw in the faces of the masses. You see them with long convoys. You see one personnel with 5-6 vehicles in the front, 5-6 vehicles on the back. In fact, there are those who believe that the National Assembly is overbloated. We do not need that kind of enormous number of those representing us in Abuja, because if we are serious, we need to look at what the nation ends vis-a-vis our people's needs and the poverty in the land. If 130-something million people are multidimensionally poor and our government officials, lawmakers are living in luxury in Abuja, does it make sense? So the big question here, Mr. Falana, is that it's not only in the federal government, also in the state. But where do we start from for citizens to hold government officials accountable?
Well, I think, again, we have to start from the top. If you look at the budget this year, 2024, we need to review the budget. Whereas the president sent the budget to the National Assembly, it was jacked up. I mean, to the tune of about 1.2 trillion naira. You can only do that if a country is, swimming, in resources. But for a country that is poor, we need to look at the budget. But it's not enough to talk about the budget at the national level. We must also take the budget of each state in the country, each local government in the country, and be able to ensure that we monitor and hold the government accountable. The media must lead the campaign in this regard. And of course, CSOs, should also go out there and mobilize our people so that they begin to ask questions from those who are governing the country, and then Nigerians must demand for their rights under the law, particularly the socioeconomic rights of our people. We can no longer take the excuse. In fact, someone should shame that we have about 133 million people that are said to be dimensionally poor. That number must go. We have no business with poverty. So I believe we have enough resources in our country, if they are mobilized, human and natural, that can make this country one of the richest, one of the most prosperous in the world.
All right. So, that is perhaps one last question, Mr. Falana, that I'd like you to deal with. The activities of President Bola Tinubu in the area of fighting corruption. There is the special investigator that he raised over the CBN, and some of the findings, although, they leaked and came out, maybe not official yet, but they're mind-boggling about what was going on in the CBN. And recently, some of the decisions of the president earlier this year, one would think maybe Bola Tinubu is doing the right thing in terms of gaining the confidence of the Nigerian people. Do you think so?
Well, for me, in fighting corruption, there isn't much to expect from the government. In fighting corruption anywhere in the world, it is the duty of the people, led by the media, to expose corruption in this country. Before the EFCC and ICPC and the rest of them were established, corruption was fought in Nigeria, particularly in the 70s under the Yakubu Gowon regime, when it was a case of, if you dabble me, I tackle you. All you needed to do then was, if you had the information, you go to a court to file an affidavit alleging corruption on the part of certain officials. And from there, the press will pick it up and feast on it until the officer involved call it quits with the government. We must go back to that era. Everywhere in the world, governments are all about secrecy. They keep records. They don't want people to know what is going on. But I think in the case of Nigeria, we have enough laws now to expose corruption, to fight corruption. It is the duty of Nigeria to bring out the information. It is the duty of the media to expose corruption. And then we expect the government to react. And that is what is going on already under the Bola Tinubu administration. Nigerians are coming out with facts and figures. Nigerians are feeding the government with information, and the government is expected to act. And if the government will not act, the people can be mobilized to compel the government to act, either by going to court or going to the streets. This country cannot afford to continue in the old ways. It can no longer be business as usual. And that is the message Nigerians are passing across to the government.
Thank you so much, Mr. Falana. I really appreciate your time tonight. I understand that you and some of your colleagues may be planning a mega political party. I don't know how far your involvement in that. If that's true.
We're planning a revolutionary party, not a mega party, a revolutionary party that will put the question of ideology, socialism in the front burner.
I wish you the very best. We look forward to that. Maybe some of those who will join are listening to you tonight. Do you have a name for it? Is this Falana Revolutionary Party, or what would you call it?
No. I'm just going to be a member. Okay. Unlike bourgeois parties, we do not decide the name, before the party is born.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.